Welcome to Shadow of Truth, and today is Thursday, July the 21st, 2016, and your hosts are Dave Kranzler from investmentresearchdynamics.com and Rory Hall from thedailycoin.org, and this is our Thursday market update. Thank you all for being here. Well, what's been grinding my gears is the propaganda that seems to be getting worse. There was an AP article that Louis Camersano sent me a couple of days ago, and they were just ripping this guy, this coin dealer, apart because he had taken out a full page ad in a newspaper saying, that the Brexit was causing the government to topple, and that billions in the stock market had been wiped out, and to protect yourself by having physical gold. And of course, from my perspective, let's recount. David Cameron resigned within 24 hours of the Brexit vote, so that would put the British government in turmoil. Or did I misread that? And if there were countless stock markets around the world that had a serious correction within 24, 48 hours of the Brexit, wouldn't that count as millions or billions of dollars lost in the stock market? I know it's recovered, but it just seems like it's just nonsense. And then of course the article went on to talk about the virtues of having an ETF, having gold in an ETF form.
Well, the propaganda persists because the public's willing to buy it. So until the public rejects it and there's a revolution, then it's just going to continue and get worse, because it's just like these politicians. They continue to get more corrupt and steal more money from the country because the public allows them to. No one cares, Rory.
No, they don't.
And if they do care, they care more about what's on TV at night. So that's we're in the final. I don't know how long it'll take. We're in the final stages of collapse as an empire, and this is what happens.
Well, let me ask you this, and this something I've been thinking a lot about recently is the U.S. dollar and the corruption that goes along with it. And help me to understand if I'm on the right path with this thought, or if I'm just wandering around in Rory land. But it seems like that once the Federal Reserve came online and the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve note, was born, it seems like at that point the currency became corrupt. And once the currency becomes corrupt, then every aspect of life that it touches has to become corrupt. Otherwise, the illusion is exposed, the lie is exposed, the corruption is exposed. And with the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve note, I should say, being the world reserve currency, it's corrupted all of these countries around the world as well. Or is that not right? Because it seems like that the illusion, the lie, the corruption are all anchored by the Federal Reserve note.
That's what the big lie is in this country. To build a true system of integrity, you have to start with an honest currency, because that's the whether, and most people don't want to admit this, but economic activity is the base foundation of any civilization. That's what survival is about.
Right.
So in order to have honest economic activity, you have to have an honest currency, and that's why gold has functioned for as long as it has as an honest currency, because you can't counterfeit it. You can try to counterfeit it.
But it's going to be exposed fairly quickly, and that's
can't print it. And right. So, yeah, I mean, when people get into control of a system, they realize that if they create a fraudulent currency, it enables them to grab power. That's why, I mean, and that goes back to Rome. I mean, they started diluting. It was a silver and gold based economic system. Then they started diluting the purity of the gold and silver, and then they started shaving the coins. So, I mean, that's what happens, and that's when your empire starts to tumble. Ever since I started studying this stuff 15 years ago, I kind of came to the conclusion that the real peak of this country was probably in the 1800s.
Yes, it was.
And now we're on fumes, and it's the fumes of a fraudulent fiat currency, but it's also in combination with a fractional banking system, because that was also part of the ingredient that toppled Rome, was a fractional banking system, because then everything becomes dishonest. I mean, that's the thing that it still just kills me, and I have arguments with smart people about this all the time. Everyone's stuck on this idea that the money supply, as it's stated by the Fed, or reported by the Fed, is the money supply, and it's not. The true money supply also includes the amount of credit that's outstanding that hasn't been repaid. Because when credit's issued, it behaves exactly like printed money until the credit's repaid. Well, our system never repays its credit. We didn't even repay it in 2010, that was the whole narrative. Oh, the U.S. economy and the consumers are they're paying down their debt. Well, that's total BS. The decline in debt that you'll see if you pull up the total credit in the system on the Federal Reserve website, the St. Louis Fred system, that decline happens because that was all debt that was written off or paid off by the taxpayers, by the government. That had nothing to do with paying down debt. And then there's a little blip downward, and then it goes right back up. And now some of the debt categories hit new records every day. Auto debt, student loan debt. Pretty soon, mortgage debt's going to be up there. So, the fractional banking system is just as big a culprit, if not bigger, than the fiat currency.
Well, and the way that the Federal Reserve note is designed is that you cannot pay off the debt, because if you do, then the currency goes away, because it has to have debt. It's an instrument of debt. Federal Reserve note is an instrument of debt. So if the debt goes away, so does the Federal Reserve note, right?
Well, I think that's sort of looking at it too literally. I mean, yeah, the Federal Reserve note it's an obligation it's a liability of the U.S. government, because it's guaranteed by the U.S. government. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. So, yeah, I mean, when the dollars you hold in your pocket are actually a liability, that means it's not true money.
Right.
A true currency, a true money, an honest money doesn't have any counterparty liability. The dollar has the U.S. government's counterparty liability. Well, the U.S. government is the most indebted government in the world, if you include all the other obligations that it has, direct obligations, funded obligations, not just these contingent liabilities that get the actual liability number over, I don't even remember how big it is anymore, a couple $100 trillion, I guess. Well, that's most of that are contingent liabilities like Social Security and pensions and things like that. But if you just look at funded liabilities, then you're talking about Treasury debt, Fannie and Freddie and FHA, and all the mortgage debt that's guaranteed by the government. There's a bunch of other stuff in there also that you can throw in there. I mean, it really gets the true government debt number. Right now, it's about 20 trillion in government debt or something, or 19.5 trillion. I mean, the true number is probably over 30 trillion. And that's really the number that people should be using. But of course they don't, because as you pointed out about the propaganda is, oh, well, the government debt number is only 19 trillion, or whatever the Treasury debt outstanding is. Well, no, that's not true, because that's not all of the direct funded liabilities of the U.S. government.
So once again, it goes back to what I was saying about the Federal Reserve note. Everything that it has touched since it was created, since it was born, it has corrupted every single aspect of life since that moment.
Yes, that's correct, because it's the reserve currency. And that's why the U.S. is being so militarily belligerent towards Russia and China, because those two countries are working actively to de-emphasize and get rid of the U.S. dollar out of their systems.
Right. And
That's
other
why. That's
systems
part
as
of the reason
well.
why they're buying gold hand over fist.
And that's why they're encouraging other nations to do the same. And
Correct.
through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union, the BRICS, and everything else. Anybody else that's willing to listen.
It's pretty obvious what's going on, and most people don't want to look at it because the implications for what it means are just too horrific. I mean, that's why a lot of people in this country don't want to look at the truth, because the implications are too horrific. I mean, the truth is, when you look at the truth, all of a sudden you realize the U.S. system is one gigantic Ponzi scheme. Every single politician out there is corrupt, including Bernie Sanders. Including Bernie Sanders. I'm sorry. He comes out and endorses Hillary Clinton. That means she's holding something over his head for which he could get in trouble.
Yep.
So even the beloved liberals, Bernie Sanders, he's corrupt. Everything in this country is corrupt.
It has
and it's
to
collapsing. And and that's why people don't want to look at the truth. Oh, I'll just turn my head the other way to all of Hillary Clinton's treasonous crimes and felonious crimes. That's okay, because I think she's going to be a less bad choice than Trump.
Or she's qualified. She has the qualifications. I love that. People march that statement out. Well,
she's
Hillary
qualified to take
prison.
money from your bank account and to push nuclear buttons to bomb all the countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. And that's what her sole charge is.
Yep, that's it.
And that's what's so ironic. All these liberals love Hillary Clinton. Well, guess what? She's a bigger neocon than Trump. Just listen to some of the speeches she's given in the past. But if they don't look at them, that means those speeches don't exist.
There you have it. So as far as honest money, so every time that I exchange my corrupt Federal Reserve note for an ounce of or whatever of silver or gold, then my life becomes a little less corrupted.
That's right.
My
Every time you use corrupt money to do transactions, you're participating in the corruption. But we don't have a choice.
Well, but by doing that, I'm actually removing some of those dollars from the system, because now those dollars that were once held as Federal Reserve notes, no longer held in that form, are now held in silver and gold. It's been transferred. That has been transferred to another entity.
Yes.
And that's what, so, and as Alistair McLeod pointed out, probably a year, maybe even 2 years ago, that people that own gold, or people that use gold in particular and silver as currency, are happier. They feel better about themselves. And all of this comes back to the corruption and the corrupt currency that we bathe in every single day, that our lives, our sovereignty is tied up in. So until we get rid of this corrupt system, this corrupt currency, we have no sovereignty, because our sovereignty, as you pointed out, Dave, the economic foundation of society being the foundation. How can you have a good, healthy society when the very foundation that it stands on is totally corrupt? It won't happen. Your sovereignty is directly tied to that. And if my sovereignty as a human being is tied to that, then that means that my sovereignty is now being corrupted. And every time that I exchange a little piece of that corruption for a little piece of honesty, I get a little piece back in my life. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, well, all that stuff is kind of touchy-feely stuff. I mean, for me, the bottom line is the system's completely corrupt, and it's just a matter of time till it collapses. And there's probably not much we can do about it.
Except be prepared. Prepare as best we can and do what we can to form alliances, just like you and I have an alliance. I mean, yeah, we're separated by several hundred miles, but we still have an alliance. We still have ways that if something does go wrong, we can communicate. Currently, we can communicate back and forth.
Until they take out the grid and shut down the internet. I mean, that was one of the first things Obama did or talked about or threatened us with was the kill switch on the internet. Funny how that didn't show up in his campaign platform speeches in 2008.
Yeah, that was a convenient oversight.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention this. I have a kill switch for the internet.
So gold and silver, they're acting the way we would like for them to act, or they were anyway.
Yeah, what's amazing about this, because it circles back to your original comment about all the propaganda, is that, as everyone knows, Japan announced that they were going to drop $100 billion in yen equivalent of helicopter money at the behest of Ben Bernanke. And the stock market shot up to a new high, and they just slammed gold. And ironically, helicopter money means that you're diluting the value of your currency, which means if the currency is essentially the stock value of a country, then stock markets should have gone down. But they slammed gold. They pushed up stocks. So the very announcement that should have caused gold to go up $100, they took it down about $50 from its recent high in June. And then it comes out overnight. I guess Kuroda gave a speech where he said there's no helicopter money and there's no possibility of helicopter money right now. And now the stock market, now just the unwind is happening, which means, you would think an announcement like that is the announcement that would hit gold and cause stocks to go up. So, I made a comment yesterday on my blog. Whenever you see a mainstream media headline, the opposite is the truth. And this point proves it right there. No helicopter money, boom, stocks get hit, gold goes up. It doesn't make any sense.
None.
But I do think, although the takedown this week was a manipulated takedown, I do think gold was ready for a little bit of a price correction, because it's had a big move since early February, huge move. And I don't ever want to see any market go parabolic, because that means that it's getting ready to top out. And gold was on the cusp of going parabolic, and silver also. So really, what the Fed is doing with these manipulations now is they're doing us a favor. And every time they take down the price of gold, every morning I wake up, and if gold's lower, I move more money into my BitGold account.
There you go.
And that's what people should really focus on doing. Don't be afraid when they hit the price of gold and silver. Embrace it as an opportunity to buy more gold and silver at a cheap price, and that's exactly what I do.
Well, that's kind of where I'm. Every day that gold and silver in particular, if silver's below 20, that's a good day to buy. Period. Because once it gets over 20, and in particular that 2025 mark, and if it'll hold that, then we have an opportunity to go even higher, right? Isn't that the mark, 2025, 2050?
Yeah, if you want to look at the charts, sure.
Yeah.
That's what chart people will say. But, honestly, from a fundamental standpoint, I just know silver's going a lot higher than where it is now. And the charts, I've noticed that it's impossible to use charts in any market that's as manipulated as gold and silver. So, yeah, certain chart landmarks where they'll say, oh, there's some order resistance here. Yeah, well, hedge funds are electronically programmed to buy and sell at those points.
Right.
So to an extent, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But that's short term. That's just to me, that's a short-term comic book. I don't care. I know that silver is probably worth $200 an ounce right now, and if I can buy it below $20 an ounce, I've got a 10-bagger on my hands. I like investments where it has a 10-to-1 payoff potential.
That's a good potential.
There's a good probability that I might not make 10-to-1 on it, but I'm going to make a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about gold and silver right now. I mean, in addition to the fact that they are true, honest currency, the world's oldest currency, they're also, you can look at them as investments now because they're so extraordinarily undervalued.
Yep. Protection and wealth, all in a convenient coin form. I like it.
I will add this, though. It's kind of funny because I'll get text messages or emails in the evening about what's going on at the Republican convention. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that this week. I mean, that's how disconnected I am from the politics in this country. I don't even care anymore. It's just I sort of watch it with amusement from an Olympian stance. I do like the fact that they basically dragged Ted Cruz and his wife out of that arena last night to the chance of Goldman Sachs. But what's funny, because Goldman Sachs is Cruz's biggest funder, but what's so funny about that, and this is how blind Hillary Clinton supporters are, Goldman Sachs is her biggest funder also.
Yep.
A vote for Hillary is a vote for Goldman Sachs.
It's a vote for your enslavement.
Exactly.
That's it. So, well, all right, Dave. Well, once again, hopefully the rubber bands, Band-Aids, and chewing gum will hold everything together until Monday, and we'll pick it up then.
That sounds good to me.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you
then.
Yeah, you too.